SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
وتكلم من هناك لشوارشتايجر
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Welcome to Soccer Today. Kevin, quick question. When do we stop being your new live show about the beautiful game? We've been doing this for more than a year now.
Yeah, that's fair. Fine, that's fair. I'm actually working on some new colors for the show, but I will be there for the brand new season this fall with the brand new audio. I might not change the intro because it's become iconic, but I will definitely have a new voiceover.
Yes, I can actually mouth all the words because I've heard it so many times without hearing it now. So that's something that we're used to. We've probably done, if you think about it, we've been 5 times a week now for a year and a bit, plus our shows before that. We've got to be getting close to our 500th show.
I think we're actually surpassed that, but yeah, we're definitely over 500 times, at least 30 minutes, if not like hours. So if you do the count, I probably have more time on air in the last 2 years than I had in my bed.
There you go. Yeah. And you count I had 363, I believe, episodes of It's Called Football. So I'm getting damn close to 1,000. That's terrifying. I don't want to know how many hours that is. It's going to terrify me. It's
Wait,
months of my life.
I don't know if you ever thought about this, but if you ever have great grandchildren 200 years on the road, they might be able to listen to you talk about the Toronto Lynx or like the history of the Toronto Blizzard.
There you go. Years from now. Some crazy stuff there, but also crazy is the European season is over. Sad. It's sad.
What are we gonna do outside of me unsubscribing to Sportsnet World? What are we gonna do? I don't need it anymore. There's nothing on.
You don't want to watch rugby?
No, I bought it for soccer, and you don't give me anything anymore. So, no, buy Sportsnet World for a few months, and thank you. My wallet is actually happy.
There you go. All right, let's talk about that European final 4-1 for Real Madrid over Juventus. Look, it was a great first half. I'll say that off the top. And then the quality took over in the second half, and Real Madrid just ran away with it. Cristiano Ronaldo just sort of stepped up and proved that I think that he is, he's a special player. We obviously know that. That's not stating the sky is blue. But, the question is.
I have an hypothesis of why Cristiano Ronaldo has been so good over the last 2 years, but I'll give it to you in a few minutes, Duane. But wow, like you mentioned Ronaldo, but it wasn't just Ronaldo. It was the team that was helmed up by Ronaldo. But Marcelo, Duane, we've talked about it with Christian on Friday. Marcelo has impressed me.
Yeah, look, everyone on that pitch was impressive Saturday. We've been talking about it a lot, how this might be among the best teams of all time. And maybe you have to let, like a wine, you have to let it age for a while before you can truly have that debate. That's probably true to that. Maybe it's a decade or so on before you can start to really have those kind of conversations. And there were some people that were pushing it back against that very thing I was saying on Twitter on Saturday after the game. But yeah, it's 3 and 4 years. This is unprecedented. You have to go back before the Champions League era to have a team that has been this dominant. And you really think they're going to take that much of a step back next year? Are they not the favorite to begin with again now? I'd have to say that they are.
They're only going to get better from here. And I'm kind of impressed by how, let's speak about tactics for a second. I've been impressed by how Madrid have seemed to put everything at the right place tactically, emotionally. For decades, Madrid was, yeah, they were a good team, but it was always the players that were having brilliant moment that was dictating some result. You did have great results in Champions League in the past and La Ligas in the past, but it was because of certain amount of individual brilliance that would carry the team and give you the trophies. And because of the money that Madrid generates, they could just buy everyone they want and put the best players on the pitch, and day in day out they have a better chance of winning. But in today's world, where it's teams of superstars at that level, you have many teams that, well, on paper, Barcelona, Madrid, yeah, Madrid's been a little bit better, but like, can take either and have a chance of winning any single game, right? It's all both all-star teams in the way they're built. But with Madrid, seems tactically, they've actually started to play as a team, have an identity, have a way to play that would dictate the result, and how Cristiano Ronaldo has been able to change the way he approaches game. It's not about showing off and doing hot dog shimmy hooks and trying to get rid of 2-3 guys. Yeah, that's all well and good when you're learning and growing. And in Manchester United, it was more like this too, trying to create space, move forward. Now it's all about the goal. It's all about the one touch. It's all about the play being generated together as a team. The team sets him up in a way that he just needs to put his foot at the right place at the right time. An amazing skill, yes, and he gets a goal. There's a big difference, and I would like to thank Grigory Halepetio, who is a student of the game. He is learning tactically, and it's been a few months. I've been trying to have him on the show. Due to time, it was a little difficult, but his timeline, GHPETIOT on Twitter, it's really interesting to see how he breaks down some of the great difference tactically that Madrid has been doing in the last few years. But Ronaldo, like, it's not about just showing off now. It's about goals. It's about what's going to make me win more, about trophies, about goals, about wins. And that's what's necessary. If I have to give it to a teammate and he scores and I'm going to go celebrate with him, which he didn't before, it's about the team now.
Yeah, and he's 32. And he's accomplished pretty much everything that you can at this point, including the the European Championship for Portugal, which, well, even though he wasn't on the pitch for the final because of the injury he sustained there.
Well, he was for the beginning of it.
For a bit. Yeah, I meant at the end.
When he was coaching that team. Let's be honest here. The players were playing for him.
So at this point in time, that's maybe the only question I have about him is what more do you have to drive forward? I suspect he may retire from international play after the World Cup. That I think
he could win it, Duane. Like, if he plays that way, and if the way Portugal was playing in the Euro, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a chance in Russia, Portugal, if they qualify.
God help us if that style that they're playing, but nonetheless, no, it's you're right. I mean, it's smart how they were playing that though. They played very defensively, lock things down. Not to rehash a tournament; it's 12 months old now, but they are lock things down and had that game breaker there, right? That you had to respect, and that's sort of not at all. It's not at all what Madrid does, of course, because they have so much more talent around him. What a great team, and I am by far a Real Madrid. I'm not a Real Madrid supporter. In fact, I don't care for the club's history in many ways. I prefer Atleti in their own city. So it's not like I'm trying to be partisan here. It's just you can't ignore the greatness. And again, to go back to Ronaldo, who, he clearly, I think, is going to be the player of the year again. I don't think there's much question about that unless Messi does something insane in the start of next season, and maybe this might drive him forward. It's been we talked about this, I think, before, to use that wrestling term. There was like a heel turn, and they flipped. Like, it used to be that the bad guy was Ronaldo and the good guy was Messi, and it's almost like it's the opposite nowadays because Messi's tax problems and the fact that he seems more gropey and he grew that beard, and I think that was the key. He grew the beard, and now he's the heel, right?
Facial hair is always indicative of a heel turn, Duane.
Exactly. So there you go. What's that say about me? Oh, anyway.
Well, nothing that you didn't know, Duane, because if you didn't know, well, you're kind of the heel. You kind of like the heel.
All right, I'm the heel. Okay, I can live with that. Anyway, should we turn our attention a little bit to the other side of the ball there?
Yeah, the first 45 minutes of it, at least.
Yeah, look, that goal was incredible. We'll watch the Mandzukic goal there. The overhead volley was one of the best we'll ever see, I think. And I remember, I was watching at Scallywags in Toronto, and the place just exploded, and just with like pure joy. Like, there's moments in a game regardless of whether you're supporting the team or not, where you just stand up and it just takes your breath away. And that was one of them. It's a Champions League final, and to score an overhead goal in that kind of manner was something that like I said, we're going to be watching that one on replay for years and years and years. And the only goal I can remember in a Champions League final that was close to that was the goal that Zidane scored in 98 or 99, I believe. I forget which one, but back around then. So that's been that long, and it's kind of interesting that he was in the stands to watch that one. But the final laugh of the day obviously came to Madrid.
The more I think about it, it's kind of interesting too that the Champions League final was between Juventus, the club where Zidane made his name to begin with, and then Madrid, right? It must have been quite an emotional journey for Zidane. But Duane, how impressive has Zidane been over the last 14 months? What hasn't he won? He won basically every tournament his team has participated in, outside of maybe the Copa del Rey this year, which is the Cup of Spain, the Spanish Cup. Champions League twice. In between, he won the Liga too. Like, how crazy is Zidane? Like, the amount of energy and focus and determination showed by Madrid in the second half. I was floored. I was listening to it. I was on my phone in the corner of, I think, city councilors and McGill on a bench somewhere, because I didn't have time to get to a place. So I was watching on my phone, and I was just floored. I was in awe.
How crazy is Zidane? Well, I think the 2006 World Cup final told us that. Talking about rehashing old games.
How crazy good of a coach. Fine.
Yes, there you go. Look, when he was appointed, we all sort of just thought, I shouldn't say we all, I don't want to make a universal statement like that, but many people thought that it was sort of just a symbolic appointment. But he's clearly, at least in this team, managed them in such a way to allow them to get their most skills out of there. As Christian said on Friday, though, there's more than the man management happening. He has made some tactical changes to this club that have gone for the best. And again, if you think back to 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, when this club was first starting to get built and first starting to become this sort of all-star team that we're looking at right now, it didn't start well for them. They didn't really excel. They couldn't yet. They were desperate to get that 10th Champions League title for a long time, and they kept coming up short. And then finally, once it got going, they become the juggernaut that they are, at least within this competition. The La Liga title this year is, I think, what puts this one over the top. And this club, as you say, keeps getting better. And look, they've got to be the favorite both in La Liga and in the Champions League next year. Barcelona is going through a bit of a change, I think. Their stars are getting a little bit on as well. I mean, Messi's still not ancient, but he's not 24 anymore. So maybe he's slowed down just a step, which is, still puts him 60 steps above most of everyone else in the world. But nonetheless, it's just, it's a phenomenal team to watch. I think we're all privileged to be watching this club. And I do truly think that 10 years down the line, we will be talking about this team and, amongst the best ever. And if they win 3 in a row, then, statistically speaking, you're starting to have to go back to their great teams in the 50s before you can get into anything that's even close to that. So what a remarkable team. It was a remarkable final. And Juve, I think, provided enough pushback in that first half in particular it was one of the best halves of football I've ever seen, just in terms of the back and forth and the drama and the goals. It was a great half of football. And then, as I said, Real Madrid sort of just pulled ahead. Too bad for Buffon. I think we all would have liked to see him go out. And 2 deflected goals too are kind of harsh on him. But
his face when the second goal went in, when the first one in the second half, he's like, here we go again. That thing I could have done. And he was still close to stopping it. If you look at the replay, mid-flight of the ball, he adjusts and he goes maybe like 1 inch off the ball, which was very buried in the corner on that very far shot by Casemiro. And it was very impressive, the goal. Yeah, Casemiro had a great game. That's another thing about Madrid. Other players steps up and become great superstars. It's not just like Casemiro and the likes of Isco, the likes of Marcelo. Those are players that we've seen get to prominence with Madrid. So they can develop too. I don't know. I'm not a Madrid fan, but I do have to recognize, and I actually have it right in my face now, yes, in the famous words of Sid, I got a Champions League cup in my face. Nothing to deny there. They have an amazing team, amazing academy. They can develop. And I don't know who's going to beat them next year. When you mentioned a 3rd time in a row, well, remember that saying? If you If you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Nobody beat the man in the last 2 years.
Kevin, even Navas, the keeper, the guy that everyone forgets about, even he played a contribution to this role with 3 big saves in that first half. That one-handed save that he made where he got up to the very top of it. Like, even Navas was contributed, and that's sort of, not to dismiss his talent. He's the keeper for Real Madrid. He's obviously got something going on. It's just you don't usually see him, right? So even when your keeper's contributing and playing a role.
Because they don't play in a way that they build from the back like a City or Barcelona would have had in Guardiola's heyday. So he's like non-existent because everybody's doing their job correctly and they don't have a lot of shots against them usually, and especially not dangerous ones where you have to do parades onto the left and to the right to stop everything. This time around, it was the case. Now I'm in awe, Duane. Champions League winners, worthy. Good job, Madrid.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll switch our attention to Major League Soccer.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Welcome back. Kevin, real quickly, I told you on Friday when we were talking about games of the week, that if you wanted to watch a train wreck this week, you should watch FC Dallas and Real Salt Lake. 6-2 Dallas.
FC Dallas, the first team in Major League Soccer history to score 5 goals in one half of play.
Yeah, that RSL team. They're so young. And their best players are young, and they were way in the U20s. The U.S. losing the U20 game to Venezuela as well. Venezuela, that's a great little team, and that's an interesting story coming out of South America. If Venezuela can pick it up, that confederation just gets tougher and tougher. If you start to have clubs like Venezuela winning youth tournaments, it's kind of terrifying. But at any rate, that's I guess if you want to start, we could start with Toronto. It's rare.
Why not? It's rare that we actually have the negative comes from Toronto side. Yeah,
3-0 loss in their bogey area, right? They go into New England, and I said this on Friday too, that this has been, traditionally speaking, a nightmare, a house of horrors for Toronto has been Gillette over the years, and it continued to be. It was a really flat and ugly performance. And I should say too, just breaking news off the top, I got the email like 2 minutes before the show started. Toussaint Ricketts out for 3 to 4 weeks. Which is actually kind of a lucky timing in terms of being out for a long term right now, because there's a bit of a break coming up, but a bit of a blow for the Canadian national team, I would have to think too, because it looks like he might be out for the Gold Cup with that. Look, what are you going to say about this? They were flat, they were ugly. Greg Vandy made no excuses after the fact. He said, you know what? Yeah, maybe they're tired, but there's no excuse. It's club at this size, this stature, right now within the context of MLS should be better at all times. They should be out there competing, hungry for every game, and they just didn't have it on that day. And full marks to New England, who got the job done and went out and took it to what the team that everyone universally in this league, and it's not me talking, that everyone in this league that observes it was saying that they were the best team. They're number 1 in the power rankings. They're top of the charts still in terms of the table, I should say, in terms of where they stand. So a good result for New England. A very, very bad day at the office for Toronto, and I don't know what more to say about it. It was just one of those ugly things. And as long as it's not a trend, as long as they recover over the week and get back out there next weekend, or when the next time they play, that's going to be, I think, something that they can recover from. But nonetheless,
one question I have for you, Duane. We talked about for 2 months now how Toronto might be the deepest team in Major League Soccer. Does this result contradict that statement, or it's just the one egg? They just laid an egg and you move on. You don't not even watching the film, don't even talk about this game, just look forward.
I don't think I don't think one game contradicts anything. It doesn't certainly take away from the performance where they won, the 6 games in 22 days. I mean, you can't take away from that. That's illustrating that point. And one result is not going to dismiss this. It does test the depth, absolutely, because you're missing many of your top players in a game like that. But look, what's the second part of the deepest team in MLS history. So you have to put that in the context. There's still an MLS team. There still is going to ultimately be some soft spots on any roster, even the deepest rosters in MLS. And as I wrote for the Vocal Minority, when I wrote my column for them, then on Friday it came out. It's ironic that it came out the day before they lost this. But what I said is that you have to put it in context. You have to realize that when you say that they're arguably the deepest team, and Dallas is in the conversation too, really you're only looking at the last couple of years, because TAM and GAM and all that has been increased to a level where you can now, bring in guys like Vasquez as essentially a fourth DP on this club, right? And that's something that didn't exist even 3 years ago. So the fact is, saying that argument isn't really saying much. Look, one game is not a trend. One game is something that you can look past and just move past, and I think that they will. All right, that's Kevin. Let's turn our attention to the game you saw, the 1-0 win over the Red Bulls. What was your biggest takeaway from that one? Is it that Montreal starting to turn things around again?
Yes, I do think that that's the case, but as well, one thing that was really interesting to me, it's the fight that was shown in the midfield, no pun intended, the amount of ball recuperation, the transition, the moving forward. Patrice Bernier, instrumental, and we'll talk about the incident late in the game in a few minutes. I think that Patrice Bernier, the way he is playing, when you have the experience and the knowledge of a Patrice Bernier, you get yourself at the right place at the right time to be effective. And it's not about doing what's best short term. Long term, it's amazing. The short, accurate passes that continue that transition. Donadell's comeback for the last 2 games have been immense for Montreal. But I do feel that now when Montreal gets into a position, they actually have that. It's not just Piatti. There's Damali. And there's a Damali effect. He's been implicated, I think, in the last 4 goals of Montreal, if not scoring 2. The amount of contribution goes way further than just assists or goals. It goes into ball recuperation deep in the midfield, the right position. When he sets himself up, he leaves almost no question to his teammates to what's the best play to do, so they execute it, and he's learning to do all that with the club. It's really interesting to me how a player like Damali comes in, brings Piatti like a teammate that he feels he can be with. You've seen that go on the goal, that give and go, that overlap that led to Piatti giving it to Damali in the box and finishing it for the sole goal of the game. You did see that non-selfish. That's not necessarily that we used not see with Piatti. Not saying he's selfish, but he was trusting his skills more than maybe passing it too often. This time around, he seems to have found a partner in crime higher up in the last third, and we've seen the result with not necessarily Piatti goals, and Piatti is going to be a little bit more absent from the highlight, from the box score, but the work rate will lead to maybe even more goals, and for the better of the team, I think that duo is going to be a very dangerous combination.
All right, fair enough. You wanted to talk about the incident?
Yes, Patrice Bernier late in the game was shoved a little bit, but it was a gaming incident, nothing necessarily ill-willed or dirty in Sacha Cliston play, and he kind of touched Patrice Bernier. Patrice Bernier was close to the sideline, close to the dugout, and in Montreal, they're actually dugout of concrete about 3.5 feet deep, and he fell trying to soften his blow, but landed on his back. He was shocked a bit and had the wind knocked off of him. So it took a little while to recover. After the game, a few minutes, he was fine. It wasn't a stall. He talked about it. And you can listen to the latest player interviews after the game on Off the Woodworks, Duane. A very busy show. And I have to say, I have an interview with Nick Depie as well. Nick Depie came in late in the game, second time in a few games, come back from an injury. Was the first super draft pick for Montreal this year. A very interesting conversation with him, and he talks about how his professional experience is going so far. So I suggest a listen of the works that came out Saturday night.
All right, fair enough. Look, I mentioned it before. Quickly, how do you think they've turned the corner? This was a club that has really struggled for a long time. I think it's fair to say, with the win there here in this game. Do you think that they're starting to turn the corner and they're starting to come together and they're going to have a better second half?
Yeah, I didn't answer the question, did I? Yes, I do feel they're starting to turn the corner. And I think the biggest achievement the Montreal Impact have made in 2017 was to convince Damali to not necessarily wait till late June, early July to come, but to come in beginning of May, to settle in, to climatize. And it's reminiscent of Jovinko move. Jovinko, yes, was even earlier in the season, fine, but it wasn't technically the same transfer window. And it is reminiscing of that move where that player comes in, has maybe a few months of acclimatization to do, but gets in an amazing groove, maybe just in time for the playoffs.
All right. Quickly, before we get into the Whitecaps game, FC Edmonton with a 3-0 loss this week. Ottawa with the draw on the road. FC Edmonton with a tough go. Maybe we'll have to have Steven on in the near future to talk a little bit about the disappointment of their 8th place standing in the North American Soccer League in the first half. Steven had pegged them as being amongst the favorites. Lots of people had. They turned a lot of teams or players, pardon me. Only 2 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw on their first half season. But let's move to the Whitecaps, Kevin. I'm going to throw some numbers at you. I know stats are stats, and they are what they are, but this one was particularly daunting. Atlanta had 66% of the ball, and the Whitecaps only completed 82 of their 514 passes. Yet the Whitecaps,
82 out of 500. What's the percentage? Like 30?
Yeah,
that's insane.
Hashtag math.
Like you're talking about a number that usually when you have a successful game or a competitive game, Major League Soccer, usually have between 75 and 85% of your pass completed. That's insane for Vancouver, but Duane, come from behind win for Montero and company.
Yeah, well, they outshot them 17-7, even though they only had 1/3 of the ball. So that's a trend in Major League Soccer, this idea, or even in the world of soccer, as we're seeing, it's kind of the era of the counterattack has come back, as I've said before. It's the Leicester style, right? Yeah, look, 3-1, Kendall Watson with the brace. Montero got the credit for the 3rd goal. It looks like it might not actually have been him when you see the replay, and that'll probably get changed. But a good performance by the Whitecaps. And, possession doesn't mean anything sometimes.
Yeah, but not too often, though, because the actual end goal is not to get the ball, but do something with it. Yes, if you have the ball, there's a higher probability that you can do something with it, but it doesn't mean you will. And sometimes it's just optics, a perception. The other team has the ball, but they're defending correctly. The lanes of passing, which would be the dangerous passes, are blocked, and tactically the team is able to absorb. So no, yeah, I think Vancouver was doing exactly that, and it's a team that's growing. And remember, it reminds me of last Tuesday. We talked to Carl Robinson. He played a lot of young players, of course, on Tuesday in the Canadian Championship. But he was talking about like the team slowly is growing. It's becoming the team they want, and injuries are coming back, and players are settling in, and they're finding tactically how to use Breck Shea maybe as a striker, a super sub striker maybe. So you do have this team kind of finally finding the places for all the pieces.
Yeah. I think about possession and counterattacks all the time. I was walking around the streets the other day, and I was like trying to figure tactically out of my mind how I would counter the counter. This is how I think, man. I walk into this.
But counter to counter, is that like a negative? With the negative, so that would mean like counter to counter is actually possession. No.
Yeah. Well, look.
Or
yeah,
long
the
ball.
Possession,
like do it.
Yeah, I get it. It's the City thing in my head, right? Because Manchester City's pretty committed to the possession, ticky-tacky kind of approach that Pep knows and knows well. So how you do counter that? How do you find victory in that? And I think you have to get more creativity out wide is how I would counter it. Because what happens with teams, they pack the middle, right? And if you don't have that sort of ability to overlap and get wide, then you're going to struggle against clubs that will just sit back and boom, 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 and then fly. And it's an effective way. Tactics are fascinating. We should have a tactics conversation on here in the summer when the times are a little slow, because we're going to have less to talk about, obviously. Although, let me ask you this, folks out there listening. Do you want us to talk about transfer rumors? Because we can do that, maybe not every day, but we could do that for one, a block a week or something like that. But I'm always not too sure on that one, Kevin. It's a lot of work to sort of compile them, and if people aren't interested, then and so let us know on.
Not just that, rumors are rumors, and it's always just a Pandora's box. That do we really want to open it? Do we really want to take the chance and put that key in it and just squeak it open? And then boom, it's over and it's all in their face. That's always a good question to ask.
Yeah. All right. If you want us to deal with a little bit of that, or just transfers, I guess we can try and deal with transfers a little bit. I think that's fair enough. But lots coming up in the days ahead. We've got the under 21s are happening. The Women's European Cup will get a little attention for that. We'll make sure that we get an expert on to talk about that for you. Obviously, the big one for us in the days ahead is going to be the Gold Cup, and we'll start to build towards that. We have to start to think about it now, Kevin, and that's something that maybe terrifies me from a Canadian national team perspective. But nonetheless, I guess it'll be good to see them out there again. And we roll on. That's what we do in Canada. We just roll on because we don't really have much to build on usually.
And next week, Canada Curacao in Montreal. That will be very fun to be at as well. So next week is going to be fun. Curacao, Canada. Well, hopefully Bishop Panier is okay. I think he will be. But it's going to be Maxime Crépeau as well. So interesting to see this friendly that is maybe geared up to get some of the squad ready for the Gold Cup.
And the women, of course, play a Thursday in Winnipeg and Sunday in Toronto against Costa Rica. So we'll look forward to watching that one. All right, Kevin, any final thoughts on the day on this short Monday edition of Soccer Today?
No, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee, Sports Podcasting Network for all the on-demand version of the shows we do, sportspodcastingnetwork.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, anywhere you get your podcast, you can find the network. And as always, until next time, I'm Kevin Laramee, and have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.